Now, some of you may see this title and be thinking, why would you need to defend Boba Fett? Doesn't everyone like Boba Fett? Well, kind of, but I actually think Boba Fett often gets unfairly compared to Captain Phasma. I, like many people when The Force Awakens trailer dropped, couldn't wait to see what they do with this cool chrome stormtrooper played by Brienne of Tarth, only to find the answer to that question was nothing. Well, that's not fair, she does ask Finn to do a blaster report. Actually, I take it back, S-tier character.
You just keep hitting the fucking home runs, Disney!
But whenever you point out how much the traitor Captain Phasma sucks, there's always someone that says she's no different from Boba Fett in the original trilogy. And first of all, that's not a defense. You can't just point to something else being bad as an excuse to why the thing you're defending is also bad. See how that pans out for you in court. Your Honor, I haven't done anything Harvey Weinstein hasn't. I just don't see that legal defense working out for you. But second of all, I think people don't actually give Boba Fett enough credit here. Don't get me wrong, the man takes a massive L. I can't praise Boba Fett as unapologetically as I praise the GOAT General Grievous. Okay, we have to face reality here, guys. I'm gonna be a bit critical on this one. But when comparing Boba Fett to Phasma, he's definitely the better character. Now, to be clear, I'm just talking about the films here. Firstly, because I think the films should be able to stand on their own. And secondly, and more importantly, I'm lazy. I'm not going over all the cool shit Boba Fett does in Legends, I'd be here all fucking day. And if I covered canon, I'd have to watch the Book of Boba Fett again, and unfortunately I'm too busy doing anything else. I think I'm finally going to get a show about an amoral bounty hunter, but then they decide they want to make Boba Fett a crime boss. Which, hey, you know, I love The Sopranos. I can get behind a Star Wars Sopranos.
Your brother Billy, whatever happened there?
All right then.
Whatever happened there?
The shooting.
But then they also decide they can't have the protagonist of their crime boss show be a bad guy. So they give Boba Fett of all characters a redemption arc.
Where'd you get that water?
We stole it.
That's a crime.
I'm not saying you can't give Boba Fett a redemption arc, but you can't half-arse it. The dude was pretty evil. So how do they explain it? That he gains his sense of ethics from his human trafficking slave masters? Sure, okay I guess. Were those the best people he could have gotten his newfound morals from? Was Jeffrey Epstein busy that day? I'm not the biggest Book of Boba Fett fan, in case you couldn't tell. His scene in Jedi Survivor was cool though.
I know, Jedi. I know what you are capable of. And I do not pity your fate.
All that being said, let's compare Fett to Phasma. So our introduction to Boba Fett is Darth Vader singling him out in a room full of bounty hunters and telling him to chill.
No disintegrations.
As you wish.
Which already tells us this guy means business. If Darth Vader, Darth if you're a child you're in danger Vader, is telling you to chill, that must mean you're pretty ruthless. Now I want you to take note of how many bounty hunters we see in this room, and then keep in mind, out of all of them, Boba Fett was the only one that was able to track down the Falcon. When Han Solo attaches the Falcon to one of the Star Destroyers to avoid detection, this tricks the entire army of Star Destroyers and Vader himself into thinking he's already escaped.
If the Millennium Falcon went into light speed, it would be on the other side of the galaxy by now.
Alert all commands. Calculate every possible destination along the last known trajectory.
But Boba Fett saw right through this. He's the reason the Empire was able to track Solo to Cloud City, meaning Boba Fett is the reason the rest of the movie plays out as it does. Solo getting captured, Luke's lost to Vader, none of it happens without Boba Fett. This already makes him far more useful than Captain Phasma ever is in the sequel trilogy. It also shows us that Boba Fett is an extremely effective bounty hunter, a step above his peers. Now to be fair, Captain Phasma is able to capture Rose and Finn for like 5 minutes, then she dies. This is unironically her greatest feat in the trilogy, capturing her ex-janitor and the maintenance lady for a minute before she dies, and they escape. Boba Fett, on the other hand, took out one of the greatest war generals / warriors on the rebellion side of the war for an entire year. He does far more for the Empire than Phasma ever does for the First Order, and Boba Fett isn't even aligned with the Empire. He's just in it for the money. And to be fair, I shouldn't really even be giving credit to Phasma for capturing Finn and Rose, because she isn't even the one that spots them. It's a droid that blows their cover. Boba Fett, on the other hand, spots Luke just from the sound of him unholstering his gun. It's a small detail, I know, but the small details add up, and they're adding up nicely for Boba Fett. There's a couple of scenes where Boba Fett stands up to Darth Vader, and I think we can all agree there's something cool about watching someone so fearlessly stand up to someone that can easily kill them. We don't get any scenes where Phasma stands up to Kylo Ren. Instead, that's Hux's job.
Careful, Ren. that your personal interests not interfere with orders from Leader Snoke.
General Hux unironically has more aura than Captain Phasma. But okay, maybe you're still not convinced. Maybe I need to bring out the big guns. So you're going to want to sit down for this, because I'm about to hit you with an argument so compelling, so convincing, that you'll never dare compare Boba Fett to Phasma again. Boba Fett has a cooler voice. Now don't get me wrong, Gwendolyn Christie has a fine voice, okay? Zero complaints. But Boba Fett...
What if he doesn't survive? He's worth a lot to me.
Makes my ovaries explode. I think I'm straight, but with that voice you could talk me into anything. Now, I deliberately used the original Jason Wingreen version there. Don't get me wrong, I love Tamari Morrison as Boba Fett, and I think he understands the character a lot better than some of the writers do.
I was hoping not to say as much as I have already in the first 2 episodes. I speak far too much. In fact, in the beginning, I was trying to get past my lines on to Ming Na. And I'd always say, excuse me, director, I really feel that Ming Na should say these lines because I want to stay mysterious.
But my god, Jason Wingreen's Boba Fett voice is just so fucking cool.
As you wish.
Unfortunately, I can't glaze Boba Fett forever as we have to face facts. The man takes a massive L. He just had too much aura, so George Lucas had to nerf his intelligence in his rematch with Luke Skywalker. Now, the first thing he does against Luke Skywalker, who I'll remind you, has a lightsaber, is to jetpack within melee range.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
That wouldn't be my first move, but if you're gonna do that, at least use the flamethrower, not your gun. So his gun gets chopped in half, and his next move is to use rope against Luke Skywalker, who has a lightsaber. It's like Boba Fett is actively choosing the worst tactics possible to deploy against the Jedi. Jango Fett was smart enough to wait till Kenobi's lightsaber wasn't active to bust out the rope, and frankly, just had a much better showing in his fight against Obi-Wan. It's a shame Jango apparently didn't pass down any lessons to his son on killing Jedi. I guess he was too busy being dead. Anyway, Boba Fett begins to shoot at Luke, and with that aim, I can begin to see why he felt the need to jetpack in front of him. And on top of Boba Fett's intelligence being nerfed, his situational awareness also gets nerfed. Because Han Solo shouting, "Boba Fett, where? Doesn't get his attention. Now I get, Solo is blind and Chewie is injured, so he's not prioritising them as a threat. But I feel like this is the perfect time to just take out both of them. Better safe than sorry. But he doesn't, which leads to one of the most embarrassing moments in Star Wars history. Boba Fett gets defeated by a blind man with a stick. This is already a horrendous loss of aura as it is. But what makes it even worse is Boba Fett flails his arms about and screams like a bitch when it happens. No, Boba Fett, not in front of the Huz! You're gonna give them the ick! Look, my favourite hobbies are being extremely biased, arguing in bad faith, and calling everyone who disagrees with me a pedophile. But even I can't try and twist this one. Maybe I could try and argue that it took 3 of the rebellion's finest warriors to take down Boba Fett, but ain't no one buying that narrative. This was a generational fumble, and to say otherwise is pure cope. The only upside about this supposed death scene is it did leave room for Boba Fett to come back and reclaim his honour. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a fan of how stakes have been ruined in most of Star Wars because characters keep surviving lethal blows due to their plot armor. But Boba Fett's supposed death was him falling into a hole while he has a jetpack on. Him surviving is not only plausible, I'd argue it's probable. Still, does this tremendous loss of aura put him beneath Captain Phasma? No. Because she has 2 embarrassing deaths. The first in The Force Awakens. When she has a gun pointed to her head, she drops the shields to Starkiller Base, leading to the destruction of the First Order's greatest superweapon and the deaths of countless First Order lives. This is a massive loss for the First Order, and it's her fault. This is especially ironic when you consider she does this to save herself, then dies a few days later in The Last Jedi. Not to mention she almost dies in The Force Awakens anyway, as she is thrown into a trash compactor, which when you think about it is quite a dark way to execute someone coming from our heroes. But anyway, she's thrown into the trash compactor on a planet that fucking explodes. This is a far more definitive death than Boba Fett's. Granted, we all knew she was going to survive because her death didn't happen on screen, and that's just sort of how movies work now, but still, she sells out her faction to save herself, then gets thrown in the trash anyway. Embarrassing. She gets her chance to redeem herself in The Last Jedi, and in her epic fight against her ex-janitor, it looks like she might take a W. But when she knocks Finn off the platform, she just assumes he's dead despite, first of all, she should be able to see Finn clearly still alive from where she's standing. But even if she couldn't, it would be a good idea to have a quick little peek so, you know, this doesn't happen. Also, Phasma, you had enough time to take a step back there. You might want to consider some boxing classes. Work on those reflexes, you know? Now, despite the fact she doesn't seem to be injured or concussed, she just sort of lays there like she's already lost the fight. Phasma, I don't know if you've noticed, you're not dead. You can keep fighting. But instead she just lays there and dies, I guess. That's 2 embarrassing deaths. Look, I completely understand if you wanted more from Boba Fett in the original trilogy. I would have preferred if he put up a better fight in Return of the Jedi as well. I think most of us do, but he was still much better utilised than this traitor ever was. Phasma isn't even the coolest stormtrooper in the sequel trilogy. That definitely goes to TR-8R.